Hi, this is Ken,
And this is Shay.
and we made a mirror out of an old tire. Unfortunately, the video of cutting that tire in two got lost or was never made or something. So I've got video of cutting this tire in two. It's really about the same regardless. I'm using a Sonic Crafter, I believe they call it. It's a Rockwell thing. It's what they cut your casts off with. And that little shoe just vibrates. And you just sort of cut along the line. And it takes a while, but it works well. The other ways that I've cut them in two have included skill saws, which smokes and makes a mess, and steak knives, which works great, as long as you don't tell your wife. You just follow your line. Some tires will have a center tread rib that you can sort of let the tool guide itself. This one was worn pretty bald, so I had to sketch a line, try to follow that. For the most part, once the shoe is in there, it wants to travel straight all on its own. Alright, now you ready?
Where did this come from?
This came from up in the gulch. Look at that, it's got some patches in it.
After your tire's cut in two, you need to find how big it is.
Yes, you do. So we measure it out. Then I got a block of wood that I've glued up here, and I mark the center. Then using just a swing arm circle jig, I'm going to go ahead and sketch out the diameter I need. And this needs to be just larger than the diameter you measured inside the tire. And that's because later you're going to go ahead and router it to the exact size. I just used a jigsaw to trim the circle up, and I tried to stay close but outside my lines. The last thing I want is to have it too small. You can never put it back, but you can always recut it. I went ahead and set up my circle cutter for the router, and I got a video on how to make that. You can find it in the description. I did it this way rather than using the table saw to cut my circles, which is actually kind of what we got famous for in the first place, simply because I could very quickly adjust the diameter, whereas setting up the jigs on a table saw, it takes a little while. When you insert the wood into the tire, you want to spread it a little bit, and that will help hold it together. And then you just sort of check the fit, and I'd like it when the bead sits flat. This one, it needs a spacer. So for a spacer, I'm just using some old junk plywood. This happened to be part of a Halloween sign. I believe it said, "Danger, do not enter." I'm just gluing it on. That's 3/8 of an inch old paneling. I just needed something. With the spacer glued on, it was time to put it back in the tire and then flip it over. That would allow me to mark the center. Show me where I need to place my mirror. Using the framing square, I just created some arbitrary 90-degree corners. You just need something to measure off from since I'm using square mirrors. Once I had marked where the mirror was going to go, I used quick-set epoxy to glue on little risers. These are 1/4 of an inch thick on top of the backer board. That's going to lift the mirror up, and I hope it'll allow some wood movement, give it some space to twist. Once the epoxy's set on my risers, I mixed up some more, and then I set the mirror into that. Sometimes I use bathroom silicone, just your generic clear silicone glue. This time I tried epoxy. I really don't see any difference in the final event. I pulled the tire in the back part, and then I gave it a coat of a satin spray, just a clear spray. Fast drying stuff. The tire can be a touch dirty, and of course, like all old rubber, if you rubbed it, it would leave black marks. But doing this, it gives it sort of a semi-gloss sheen. It's easy to clean, and it really accentuates the cracks, which is kind of what I like best about the project. While the tire dries, I give the back a coat of just some flat black house paint, just some latex stuff. It'll help minimize wood movement, but more importantly, it makes the back sort of disappear. It's, just a nice touch. As always, Flat paints, flat finishes hide better. Insert it back together once everything's dried and screw it together. I just use black drywall screws. I pre-drill through the rubber and into the wood just a little bit. You know, it's a pretty thin wood to hit, and sometimes the screws can go a little crooked when you insert them through the rubber. This way I can get them started in exactly the direction I want. You know, the black screws, they just sort of disappear. No one's ever commented on the fact that I have visible screws on the outside edge, and I don't think anyone's ever noticed them. I've made 2 or 3 of these now. It's kind of a cool thing to make with these sorts of tires. Not any tire will work. You really have to find an old bias ply cloth belted tire. You're just not going to get a steel belted tire, I think, to cut and work properly. The tire you see in this particular video was actually pulled off the bottom of the local swimming hole down by the river. I was down there diving and looking at rocks and fish and stuff underwater with some goggles, and I saw that thing, so we fished it out and drug it home. And I was just trying to get rid of it, but it looked cool. It's a walnut tire, so it's an old traction tread. I don't know, you use something that was destined for trash and leave the place a little cleaner behind you. Everybody wins. Maybe even make some money on it. I've been selling these for about $80. There's just something about them I like. I mean, I like the fact that it's truly an original idea. I'm not saying that no one else has ever tried this. It's not like I saw it somewhere and thought, how'd they do that? I'd like to try it. It's just an idea we had. But I mean, when you look at this thing, think of the miles, the families, the revolutions that tire's made. It spent 40 years underwater in the river after somebody threw it out, and now we've done this to it. I don't know. It's just really cool. An old U.S. Royal tire. I even dig the weird brown square on the side. No idea what that is. The tire's gone all soft and squishy. Yeah.
And if we post a picture up on the thorn tree, click on the thorn tree.
You want to go make a video about the thorn tree?
Mm-hmm.
Will you narrate it for me?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go.
All right.
The thorn tree. It could be standing for like maybe 4 or 6 or 70 years now. And still